Okay, y'all. I've got another cool game. Definitely very illustrative, and I think it's a great learning example of how you can better play the free people and the shadow. So I'm playing as the free people once again. My opponent is playing as shadow. I'll show you the opening rolls. My opponent decides to allocate one eye and gets a great roll. I think this is a phenomenal roll if you are starting as Shadow. You can immediately get Isengard to war, get and basically get Saruman. You can get Sauron to war as well. Um, I get a roll, which is fine. I do have Riders of Theoden, which is a playable card with this muster, and I do have these army musters, which are good to start to get going. So they're good to start making the early moves that make the North and Rohan a little bit harder to take. I do also have I Will Go Alone, and my opponent has Rage of the Dunlendings, a good card, I think, especially early on, and then Lure of the Ring, which is fine. So they do have one playable card if they needed to. Um, and you can kind of think what you would do here on either side. And I'll go ahead and start it off. My opponent immediately just starts mustering, which I think is perfectly reasonable. I get Riders of Theoden, play that card. My opponent starts to move towards Lorien, um, and which is pretty cool. I do the basic army moves, and then my opponent continues to move. Um, and I think this is kind of the point at which you would question: do you move once as the Fellowship, or do you not? If you move once as the Fellowship, you're still not getting Gandalf this turn because we're not using tokens. So my opponent will wait to get Saruman as their last action. So I decided to move once with the Will of the West as my first move, and I think that's the right choice. You could still use a ring afterwards. On my move, they hit and they get a reveal, which is rough, pretty rough. So, yep. This is, arguably the worst tile that you could get. Your first move out, um, and there's only one eye. My opponent gets Saruman. I do a second army movement. Um, and I will switch over to Strider at the start of next turn so that I can move a little bit faster. Um, there is a question here whether you would have used a ring to go ahead and hide this turn or whether you wouldn't have. I think maybe in hindsight, using a ring to hide would be a wise choice. I didn't need to use that second army move, not that urgently, and I want to get moving as fast as possible. I want to lose Gandalf as fast as possible. So um, my opponent gets Dreadful Spells, Denthor's Folly. I get Mithril Coat and Sting, great card, and then Help Unlooked For. Meh. Um, I switch to Strider, which I think is the right choice given what I did. My opponent gets a lot of Palantirs, not what you want to see, and I get a perfectly balanced roll, which I think is very, very good. Um, so, yeah, you can think what you would do as Shadow and what you would do as Free in this case. Um, Shadow does have Rage of the Dunlendings, which is a good card. Um, uh, they don't have any musters this turn, so it's very unlikely that they will get the Witch King. But anyways, let's go ahead and move forward. I immediately hide. My opponent searches, goes ahead and draws a card. They don't have cards that they necessarily want to play. Denethor's Folly is fine, but they seem to be going up north, and they don't have these Southbounds and Easterlings at war. Rage is okay. Lore they can't play. So I go ahead and move. My opponent misses. My opponent puts non-school on me. And sort of assumes that I will go high pass. I pass. They draw another card. Kind of sucks to have to draw so many cards. They then play on they went. Find a card to draw. My opponent continues to move towards Lorien and the Elves. So it's not terrible. Obviously, it's not what you want as Shadow, but at least you can get your movie or your armies moving north, which is good. And I move again. There is sort of this question of, whether you could move once with a ring and take a random after this. I think that in this case, it's sort of apparent to me that I should have hid last turn. Um, if I hadn't hid last, if I did hide last turn, I could have used, I could have moved once more with a ring, and I could have gotten in Gandalf this turn. They get another 0 reveal. Rough. I guess I still couldn't have gotten Gandalf this turn. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Sometimes you just don't get lucky as the fellowship early on, but you got to keep playing. I go high pass. Um, I think that if I had the Will of the West showing, I would have gone to Moria, certainly, and could have been able to get Gandalf. I think this is just sort of a mistake. I think that giving your opponent, giving Shadow a ring early on, it sucks. But sometimes it's necessary to keep you moving. And it would have really changed the game, I think, dramatically if I had done that. My opponent plays Morgul Wound now that I am revealed, unfortunately. Again, getting both of these 0 reveal tiles is a de minimis chance in the first few turns of the game. But what are you going to do? I hide using Strider, so I can switch back to Gandalf next turn. And my opponent gets Shadow is Moving, which is great, and Foul Thing from the Deep, which is also pretty good. Seeing as we've already exhausted 2 of the 0 reveals, which are great later on as good cards. So I get Ints, which is great, and then Book of Mizarble, which is very interesting. So switch to Gandalf. My opponent allocates 1 eye. They roll what is a great roll. They'll definitely get the Witch King this turn. They're not going to be able to get the Southrons and Easterlings, but it looks like they're going to be basically hitting the 2 Elven Strongholds. Most likely, if I'm playing Shadow in this case, I would want to deal with Dew, so deal with the Northernlings, the North, and after I deal with the North, I would want to put the Elven Strongholds. First I deal with the North, get them to war, get the Witch King, and then wait one more turn to put the Elven Strongholds under siege. Is probably what I would do. As free, I want to kill Gandalf, and get him out. It's been too long, and I get this beautiful roll as free. Obviously, I would have preferred this against 1 eye, but what can you do? You can also sort of see my hand. So, anyways, let's keep going. Good roll. I go ahead and I decide to move. Maybe I didn't need to move immediately there. Maybe I could have waited. I didn't want. Well, perhaps I could have waited. What I thought to myself is like maybe they're going to get the Southrons and Easterlings to war, and so Day Without Dawn could be a threat. But I think it's so likely that you're going to get the Witch King this turn that seems like not a really big threat. So I didn't need to necessarily move. I'm safe. So I'm moving north. I move Fellowship again. They get 2 6s. They've been rolling very hot on 6s when hunting for the Fellowship. I take Gandalf to a 2 reveal, which I think is good. Well, I mean, not great, but I've been revealed way too many times, and I have taken the high pass. So yeah, it's rough. I definitely regret the first moves of the game not using that ring, because I think this could have been a very different story. I could have already had Gandalf out, and I could have been probably in Parth Celebrant or Eastamnet already. So, but that is not what happened. My opponent attacks Old Forest Road. I don't have scouts. I don't know if they even play their Swarm of Bats here. They do play their Swarm of Bats, so they get Old Forest Road, which is good for them. I hide the Fellowship. They put somebody on the Fellowship, which is, again, good for them. They get their armies towards the west going. They attack Dale. I do play a card because I want a card. I don't play Book of Mizarble because I think that I could perhaps use that later on. But I'm going to be drawing 2 more cards, so I may as well just play something. I do get 2 hits, which is good. So Help them Look For was good. They get the Witch King, I get Gandalf. And they play Rage, which is, fine. You got that. You already have plenty of shadow cards. There's nothing else that you really could have played. You could play Denethor's Folly. I think that was good. And we are on to the next turn. And this is where things kind of get interesting. Um, so my opponent gets Day Without Dawn, which is great, and Breaking Up the Fellowship. So they've got a lot of really powerful Fellowship attack cards. Morgul Wound, Breaking Up the Fellowship, Foul Thing from the Deep, um, which is good. I get Gua here, always good to see, and the Red Arrow, phenomenal for scouts. So it's nice to have that in my hand. I finally have 5 die. Allocates 1 eye, gets 2, and I get this roll. So some movement, some Palantirs, some musters. So you can kind of think what you would do in this case for both Shadow and Free Peoples. I think for Shadow, it's fairly obvious that you want to get both of the Elven Strongholds under siege this turn. Not necessarily taking them both, but definitely at least under siege. And then at that point, you probably want to wait until the Fellowship is revealed and start playing some of this good stuff. They can't even play Foul Thing here because I'm in a settlement. So wait for the Fellowship to move a little bit. Play these with your Palantirs. Keep the pressure on the Fellowship, which is happening pretty good. Get the Elven Strongholds under siege, and then perhaps get the Southrons and Easterlings to war. Is probably what I would do. As the Free People, I keep thinking about this Book of Mizarble, and I keep thinking the Southrons aren't at war. It's very unlikely that that my opponent is going to put them to war immediately. So I mean, maybe this turn they will. So maybe Book of Mizarble is strong. And maybe putting the Elven Strongholds under siege this turn doesn't matter that much. I haven't mustered them at all. Obviously, if I do start mustering them, so if I muster one of them once, you have to put the other one under siege immediately. So you need to keep your swords until I use my musters. Anyways, I start by moving, which I've got to keep moving as the Fellowship. They don't hit me, which makes sense. They start getting the Southrons to war. I move the Fellowship again. They do hit me. They get a 2. And here's the real question. What do you do? So I think to myself, getting Gimli, Legolas, or Boromir, that's fine. Very efficient use of corruption. Getting Aragorn, not good, but it's a 1 in 6 chance of getting Aragorn. But I have a 2 in 6 chance, a 1/3 chance of getting a Hobbit immediately into Erebor. And so I think to myself, this is a perfect opportunity for Book of Mizarble. I drew the random, and I do get a Hobbit into Erebor, which, to my opponent, I don't know, they're like a Hobbit's into Erebor. Obviously, I get a little bit of corruption, which I don't like. And my opponent attacks Lorien, and at this point, I think to myself, wonderful. They're not going to be putting Erebor under siege this turn. I'm in a great situation to go ahead and muster the Dwarves. So I play Book of Mizarble with a Palantir, and I use the rest of my muster dice to muster the Dwarves. So my opponent gets some Nazgul. I do muster 1 into Iron Hills because they technically, I guess they don't even have a ring, so I don't necessarily need to. And my opponent moves Nazgul. They play Dreadful Spells on Lorien. They get 3 hits, which is more than you'd expect. Doesn't matter. Lorien was going to fall anyways. They draw a card, and I muster more Dwarves. So. It is. I think this is great. I have the Dwarves to war. That's wonderful. They're powerful. Did I need to muster? I think mustering a single regular into Iron Hills is good. It prevents efficient movement from the Southrons and Easterlings. I think when you're in this situation, you can think to yourself, hey, I'm going to build this massive Dwarven army. I think you can think 3 things. You can think, I'm going to build this massive Dwarven army, and I'm going to retake all of Dew with this massive Dwarven army. Okay. You could think, I'm going to buff up Erebor, and I'm going to ignore it after that. I think that would have been good too. Or you could plan to buff up Erebor as much as you can. Immediately take back Dale. There's no one that's threatening Erebor right now. So you could immediately take back Dale, and it's going to be hard for them to threaten Dale, especially because the Southrons aren't at war. And then you can start mustering into Dale. I think the first one, where you just build this massive army in Erebor, is incorrect. I really think that if you're the free people, you can do sneaky things that hurt our shadow player, and that's fine. But I think the better thing to do, and that's great. I think that's powerful. You can also get your things better under siege, or get your strongholds better fortified. But I don't think, if you're the free people, I don't think it's effective to just muster, build up a massive army, unless maybe it is in Dale. Dale is a great place because it's next to these two strongholds and can defend them well. So this is sort of a big learning. You'll kind of see what I continue to do throughout the game and how it pans out. My opponent then plays Balrog. I don't think that's really useful. I guess they didn't want to discard any cards, so they want to play that. Maybe even just playing Denethor's Folly is better than that. I don't know. And they draw Return of the Witch King, which is good for Swarm of Bats, and then Shelob, which is great. They discard Day Without Dawn. Kind of crazy, but I get Wizard Staff and Grimbjorn. You can kind of think what you would discard. I think this is a fairly obvious choice. Wizard Staff is basically useless unless Gandalf is going to be fighting, and I don't think they're going to be fighting. I want Gandalf here. I do have an Ince, so the threat is actually real. I stay undeclared. I think this is right. They've got one reroll on me here, and they also have one reroll on me in Northern Ravinia. So, I'd rather stay in a settlement. Allocate one eye. We do the rolls, and this is my roll. And I think if I had mustered a ton in Erebor, maybe starting with one more muster in Erebor, I could have had. Let's imagine that I put one single regular in Iron Hills. I could have had 2 regulars, 4 elites, and 3 leaders in Erebor, which would have been more than enough to go ahead and take Dale. Maybe I should have not even mustered in Erebor at all. I should have just immediately attacked Dale, reclaimed it, and they could go ahead and attack Dale, which would be fine. But I could go ahead and start mustering Northerners, which are generally better to muster than Dwarfs because there's a bigger force pool. So I could have caused some trouble, quite a lot of trouble. I think I probably could have kept Erebor well defended and perhaps gotten back Dale. It would have caused some gnarliness. Obviously, it would have been nicer to have more musters in order to do that. But anyways, my opponent plays Shelob's Lair, which is fine. I don't know why that seems like a strange play. Like, why do that right now? Unless you want to draw a card, I guess. I think I would have mustered the Southrons and Easterlings to give me more optionality on what to do. My opponent goes ahead and attacks the Elves. Totally fine. My opponent attacks Lorien. They kill super overkill on Lorien. I move. Fine. My opponent just kind of and let me be back.